Hi, Sandy from Apple Cottage, and this is just going to be a short video, so if you like it, make sure that you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. But these are just going to be jobs you can do in November. Sometimes if we break it down, the gardening isn't so overwhelming with all the things that you do throughout the year. One of the first things, if you haven't already started to do this or finish this, is collect the last of the leaves that have fallen onto your grasses. I collect lots and lots and lots of bags of leaves from people. They save them for me instead of taking them, throwing them in the trash or going to the dump. We do have a recycling center, but a lot of them tell me they'd rather just give them to me instead of doing that. And I make compost out of them, leaf mold. So that is always something that I'm doing in October and November. In fact, I just got a few more bags just the other day. Things to do if you haven't already done it. You've taken all the things out of your garden. Did you put cover crop onto your garden? Did you plant a cover crop so that your soil isn't bare? If you haven't and the weather where you live has already changed, there's some things you can do. Take some of those bags of leaves that you collected, scatter them all over your garden to make it so that the wind doesn't blow those away. Get a bale of straw and you can put the straw over top of the leaves and just let them biodegrade all winter. And I've had a lot of success doing that. And it's an easy way to do if you've gotten busy and you haven't got to that point in your garden. Just cover it up so that the wind is not blowing your soil away. The moisture is staying down into the soil. So if cover crops or doing the leaves will be really good for your garden. I also like to sometimes scatter a few carrot and radish seeds different places in the fall time, and just to see how many come up the next year. I did that last year in my North Community plot, and I had some of the most wonderful carrots this year, and they were all over the garden because I just scattered them. They're not raked in, they're just on the surface, and then you have your leaves or your cover crop, and they just work their way down, and in the springtime they come up. So that's just, just something fun, and they come up pretty early, and so that's always interesting. If you left your parsnips and carrots in the ground, they should be nice and sweet right now, especially if you've had any snow or frost, and it's a great time to dig them up. Otherwise, pile them thick. I'm talking about a foot or a foot and a half of straw over top of them, and they'll store for most of the winter. And then when you need them, you just push some of that straw away, dig them up, push the straw back. I like to plan out my garden. I like to take a piece of graph paper and plan my gardens for the next year. I like to draw where my carrots are going to be, where my onions, where the leeks are. If you haven't planted garlic and your soil is still not frozen, plant your garlic right now. Up here in the north, we always have hardneck garlic. We can't grow softneck garlic. Well, we could in the springtime, but it doesn't really give us enough of a season to get very good garlic. So we plant our hardneck garlic in the fall, and then in July and August, we're harvesting huge bulbs. And so if your soil isn't frozen, do it now. It's time to mulch those hardy perennials that you have. Also, at this time of the year, once my fruit trees go dormant, I put about 3 to 4 inches of straw, well, a lot of times leaves first and then straw, around the base. And I go out a long ways, as far as I can. Because what it does, it protects it in the wintertime, of course. Holds the moisture in there, of course. But the biggest factor for me, where we live in Wyoming, is that in the springtime, when a fruit tree is coming out of dormancy, it actually comes out of dormancy from the roots, up the trunk, into the branches, and then to the leaves. There are some schools of thought that even when it's budding the flowers, it's still basically dormant, which I find interesting. Not really sure, true or not true, but there are some schools of thought that do believe that. But anyway, what it does is because the roots stay colder longer, I can gain maybe 2 weeks before they start to bud out and flower. And that can make the difference for us in the north of its success and no success, because sometimes we will have killing frost in late May, or last year at the end of May we had 11 inches of snow. So that straw protects my fruit trees. I do not cut my perennials down. A couple reasons. One, I love it when they have frost and snow on them. I find it very attractive instead of just, stubble. But the other main factor is that a lot of my perennials have hollow stems when they dry, and native bees lay their eggs in there. And if I cut them down and put them in the compost pile or chip them up, I've lost those bees. I like to make sure that I mulch bulbs, and if I have a section of tulips or daffodils that are going to come up, those areas I mulch. The daffodils that I have that grow in my lawn, I don't. They survive or they don't survive. But for the most part, they're pretty good. I do make sure all of my tools have been cleaned, they've been sharpened, they're put away. They're not sitting outside so that they're in the weather. I don't want them to get any rust on them. And it's a great time to sharpen them in November because you have extra time. Tomorrow I'm going to plant up my amaryllis bulbs. I had grown them all winter last year under lights, and they flowered. And then I take them outside, and sometimes I can get them to flower again in the summertime in the pots. We just had such a cold, rainy summer. They grew, they got new leaves, but they didn't flower. And so then I take them inside, I take all the soil off of them, I put them in a box so that they're basically dormant for a little bit. But tomorrow I'm going to pot those all up so that they'll start growing right away. If you buy a living Christmas tree each year for Christmas, now is the perfect time to dig that hole before the ground is frozen. And that way after Christmas, you have a ready-made hole that the tree can go into it. Make sure you have that extra soil. And sometimes maybe put that extra soil that you dug up in some buckets and put it in your garage so it doesn't freeze solid right next to it, or you won't be able to use that to plant back around it. I make sure that all my vines, my clementises, and my kiwis are secured onto their trellises that they climb up, especially if they're brand new. The ones that have been more established, they're all twined around their arbors, and so I don't have to worry about them. But if I have new ones, I want to make sure that they're secure and that the wind in the wintertime isn't whipping them around. So those are just some jobs that you can do in November. It's a great time of the year. You should be getting your seed catalogs anytime now. And make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And this is Sandy at Apple Cottage, and have a great day.